just want to be really clear with everybody that, you know, we're going to get a higher perspective from the Angel Raphael around the vibration of addiction. However, if you are suffering from some type of severe addiction that is creating a lot of difficulty in your life, or have abusing some type of substance, you need to get professional support and help and go to a treatment center. So this is not for that at all. It's to just tap into addiction from a more of a spiritual and a vibrational viewpoint and get a better understanding about it. All right, so just want to be clear on that. I know I was on a call, my husband's involved in the community in terms of working with things that are going on. And I know with COVID that addiction has even gotten worse, and a lot of people are home and tapping into more abusive substances than ever. And it's a rampant problem that we're facing that needs to be addressed, and we need to get people professional help. But Raphael woke me up in the middle of the night a few nights ago and kind of was on a little bit of a rave about both the vibration and the energy of addiction and distraction, and how important it is to work on looking at that and resolving it in terms of raising our consciousness and moving to the next level. So that's why we chose this topic for today. I am going to take a minute or two and answer a couple questions about the Starseed Master Class. Everyone has, a lot of people are emailing me, texting me, and reaching out, and they have questions. The class starts on April 3rd. I originally had it scheduled for the 4th, which is Easter Sunday. Energetically, it's a beautiful time for resurrecting a new life, but we're going to do it starting on Saturday. So the main classes will be on Saturdays at 2 p.m. East Coast time, where I will come in and channel Raphael. And then Raphael will bring in all kinds of information, and we're going to work with very, very high frequencies and do a lot of traveling to ancient civilizations and tuning into times when everyone in the call has been masters of high priests and priestess, and really tuning into that vibration. I'm getting so many downloads and preparing for the class. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Then on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., Casey will do a class where he's going to give you practical information to implement the teachings of Raphael that come in on Sunday. And then on Thursday night at 7 p.m., we're going to be doing Q&A. We can ask Raphael questions and sacred ceremony practices that we learned from Raphael earlier in the week that have to do, we've got a muting issue. If you're not muted, just make sure you're muted, okay? That are a lot of fun, and I think we're going to be ending it with something with the group. So if for whatever reason you can't make a call, it's not a big deal. Everything's recorded, and then you receive a replay afterwards. You have the material for a lifetime to go back and listen to. I go back and listen to material that Raphael channeled in the late 80s, and I get something new out of it every time. I've got people on these calls who've been taking classes with me for 20 or more years, and you can go back in and listen to any of the material. And even when I go back and listen to it, I'm like, oh, now just like a really good spiritual book. Then you don't quite get it in the beginning, and the more you read it, then you're like, now I get it. So some of the information will be very high level, and that's okay. Wherever you're on your spiritual journey, you will absorb whatever you can from it, and then again, you'll just keep re-listening to it over and over. All right, so I hope that answers some questions about the Starseed, and I'm going to continue to talk about it and share it because I'm genuinely excited about it. Oh, and someone asked me today, they're like, oh, well, if I can't afford it, there is a payment plan. You can break it up over 3 months. Anyway, I think we've covered everything with that. All right, so if you're new to these calls, there may be a few people that are new. The way that I channel is I close my eyes, I tune into Raphael's vibration, I merge with that frequency, my hands kind of move about, I rock back and forth, I make a toning sound, that's Raphael coming in and me sort of moving aside, and then Raphael will say hello and come in and say hi to everybody, and then after that happens, we'll start with the topic for the day. Okay, so if everybody wants to kind of just get centered. Take a nice deep breath and tune in. That would be great. Whew. All right. Hmm. Uh, Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello,
Hello.
hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
It is that we are delighted to be here and to speak to you from the angelic realm, but we are wanting to address sometimes while we are always saying we is because it is that where it is that I am, there is no deep sense of individuality or separation, for it is collective, and so sometimes it is difficult for me to even utilize the word I. But it is that I, or we from the angelic realm, are here to be of service and to support you in any way in which we can, for that is our mission, our work, and our purpose for being. And it is that as we have an open vessel, such as this one and many all over the planet, and we descend into form in order to speak in this particular way, sometimes we tap into a certain bandwidth or frequency on the planet that is getting perhaps in the way of what you might call the ascension process, or elevating the collective consciousness to a vibration in which you're able to catapult your energy or leap into the fifth dimension of unity and love. And it is that as we zoom out from our perspective, taking a bird's eye view perhaps on the perspective of the consciousness as a whole, we can see that one of the things that is plaguing and creating a lot of havoc in the consciousness is distraction. And sometimes you might even want to call it addiction, in which one is deeply disconnected from self. And so we're wanting to talk to you about this because it is that in the healing of addiction in the human collective as a whole is one of the greatest ways to begin to accelerate the vibration on the planet. And sometimes from the angelic realm, we're almost being a bit selfish, you see, because it is that you must understand that the evolution and the ascension process for the earth and its inhabitants is not only essential for your own process, but for where it is that we are and for the galactic community as well. And so it is of our nature to, and of course, want to support all of you and to love and adore who it is that you are, and to be here to remind you of the divine that resides within. And so perhaps we will delve into what it is that you're wanting to know about addiction and about these vibrations and energies. And so talk to us for a moment. What is it?
Hi, Raphael. So, we want to know exactly what is addiction, how is it formed, how can we cure
Oh,
it, right?
that's a lot already. How is it formed? It is quite interesting. For it is that in the human experience, in part of being in separation and in the vessel, there is a lot of beings who are in a deep sleep. And when we talk about a deep sleep, we mean they're not consciously aware of their behavior or their actions, nor are they able to perhaps shift away from it, for they're in a dead sleep. And from this place, they perhaps act in very unconscious ways. And in these unconscious ways, they can create harm or trauma to another. And when one experiences some type of infliction of a type of trauma that is imprinted in the body itself and in the auric field, it often doesn't have a way to dissolve, to be resolved, or in a sense to be freed. Due to the nature of your collective agreements and your society and cultural upbringing, you have taught each other and your children from a very early age to be quiet, not to cry, to push down their feelings, and that if something is wrong, to get through it, or to pull up from their bootstraps, or to figure it out, or to will themselves past it. And due to that, there is a sense that it is not safe to allow oneself to fully feel the pain of a particular incident or a trauma. And when that happens, the body stores it somewhere to keep it safe and to push it away so that one can maintain a sense of understanding to go forward. And so they take an incident, and it can be something as horrific as an abusive relationship, or a sexual abuse, or rape. And it can be as simple as a mother saying something in an innocent way that has an imprint that is stored in the cellular memory. But no one in the human experience escapes from some type of energy that is coming in from an outside source that on some level hits a part of self that is unable at a particular moment in time to process it, and it gets stored. Now, some store it in more than others due to their upbringing, in which it is deeply suppressed and pushed down for long periods of time. And some allow it to seep out over time in different ways, for they have expression or creativity, for they may sing or write or paint or dance or breathe or do yoga, different ways to slowly allow the energy to begin to dissipate through meditation and so on. But if one is in a deep sleep and they've had a lot of trauma, what happens is it continues to pile up. And so the being is seeking a solution to not feeling the pain anymore. And so they will find something to numb it or to bring them pleasure. And that might be a cigarette that gives them pleasure, or it may be a drink, or it may be distracting it, obsessive looking at something on their phone, as you might say, or shopping or buying things, something that is numbing the being out of having to feel. And so that creates a pleasure, what you might call response in the body, and it becomes an energy that is an impulse that one looks to automatically, sometimes without even thinking it is an automatic impulse, in order to feel good. And because that, it continues to get reinforced due to the fact that where you put your energy and your attention, as you all very well know, grows and expands. And if it's aligned with an emotion that triggers a vibration of an energy of pleasure, or a sense of stillness in which the mind is able to numb itself, of course the being is going to energetically want to perpetuate that. And so the addiction is formed out of looking to solve a problem from a trauma that occurred. And then we want you to know that in order for it to begin to be dissolved, it is that you have to allow the energy of the whatever is being stored, this trauma, or even a memory, or an accumulation perhaps, or a lifetime of them that have not been felt, to be felt, to come to the surface. But that's very scary. So it's much easier to numb them. And so what's happened collectively around the planet is that, especially due to your technology, It's an easy way to continue to suppress your trauma and your emotion and to numb them, which is a beautiful way to keep you asleep, to keep you checked out. And what happens is that that distraction then disconnects you from your higher self or from source or to spirit, whatever word you're wanting to talk about. And so when you're disconnected from spirit or source itself, that is the greater issue than the actual performance of the addiction itself. And so it's very important to recognize that and to recognize that in the return to the connection to spirit, to the connection to source, with the willingness to allow the energy that has been stored or blocked to have its freedom to surface, is the ultimate solution to the addiction. Now, one might say, well, that's quite easy for you to say, Raphael, for you are not looking for your glass of wine at night, but it is that I am. And this is very true, for it is from the angelic realm. I do not have the beautiful opportunity of experiencing the five senses and the pleasure of them, whether it might be your shopping or your drinking or your smoking or your sex. For it is that the sensation of whatever that pleasure is overriding the willingness. But the addiction is true addiction when the pain from what you are doing to numb this original suffering is greater than the pleasure. Then you know it has become an addiction. For it is that none of these things we are speaking of in increments or done in a casual way in themselves are to be labeled as bad. For it is that shopping is not bad, and a glass of wine is not bad, and a smoke of something once in a while is not bad, and watching Netflix isn't bad. It is the excessive need to do it in order to numb in a compulsive way until what it is that you are doing is creating more pain in your life experience than it is pleasure. That is the definition of the addiction itself. And so if you find yourself at a place in which you're deeply wanting to stop perhaps an addiction, and yet you cannot do it for some reason, it is that the more you tell yourself that you cannot do it and that you keep trying, the more you are anchoring in the energy of the addiction itself. And this is very important, because what happens is often you align with addiction, shame, and guilt. For it is that as we tune into the vibration around the planet about those perhaps that are in a very dire strait around an addiction that they cannot stop, they are often very deeply judged. Rather than seen as a being that has deep trauma that resides within their cells, that is seeking to be loved and seen and given permission to be free in order to be healed, they are somehow labeled as bad humans or as ones who can't perhaps get their act together. And it is that that label in itself continues to perpetuate the addiction. So one of the most important things is to get rid of the shame, get rid of the guilt around it, and the judgment, because that is just perpetuating it, is just adding energy to it, and is just expanding upon it rather than supporting you and releasing it. But it is that in order to release it, you must drop into a new vibration, and the vibration of remembering that every single thing is just energy, and that's all it is, that you are energy, and that in which you are aligning with is energy, and that it has different frequency levels or bandwidths in which you can tune into. And there's the tuning in bandwidth of addiction, and there is the tuning in bandwidth of a higher frequency in which you are at ease and at peace with whatever is. For addiction is a wanting, a deep desire to remove a feeling of suffering from your experience, whether you're conscious of that suffering or not. And the deeper it is down in the cells of the DNA, the more it is hidden, the harder it is to even recognize that it exists. You just think, well, I'm addicted to the endorphins of whatever it may be, or the smell or the taste of the glass of wine, or the calming effect of the marijuana, whatever it might be. But really, it is that it was developed within your being as something that you were seeking as a solution to a suffering that you were experiencing, that you weren't wanting or willing or had the tools to allow to surface. And so as the humans are right now elevating their vibration and moving very, very rapidly into a higher state of consciousness, and collectively, many of you are going through a very difficult time, and the collective planet as a whole is drudging up all kinds of energy to come to the surface to be healed. It is that in order for the planet and the collective human consciousness to reach the band frequency of unity which you're seeking, the blanket of the addiction that has been put in place in order to stifle the emotion that needs to be free must be dissolved. And so that's all great, you might say, but how do I do that? Well, it may require a few things. One, taking complete and absolute responsibility for who it is that you are, where it is that you are, and what it is that is happening, that there's nothing happening to you. And that's a big one, and it's not very easy, and it can be quite controversial. And then it is to begin to align with what it is that you are wanting, and to start to begin to place your attention on the feeling of what you're wanting to feel, because you're seeking to take in something in order to feel something, but that feeling that you're usually getting is a numbingness or a way for the thinking mind to be quiet, or a sensation, an impulse, or temporary pleasure. But ultimately, what is it that you are seeking? So we're wanting you to spend some time journaling about what feeling it is that you're trying to get from that, in which has become what you might label as an addiction. It is no longer just giving you that pleasure, but it is ultimately long-term giving you pain. And then, of course, there is the willingness to feel. And the willingness to really, really feel completely, utilizing the senses of the energy that is wanting to be come up, that you have tethered or suppressed deep within the imprint of your being, is where the true actual healing occurs, and is where the seeking for a way to numb it no longer comes into your experience or is craved or dissolved. And so it is a willingness to face it straight on in the mirror, the pain and the trauma or the feeling that's uncomfortable. And in order to do that, you can use multiple different sources of talking to someone, or therapy, or all of these different things in which you have. Or you can begin to recognize it as energy that is trapped. So addiction really is a stored energy that is caged within your being to prevent you from feeling suffering. And so it's a protective mechanism. It's protecting you. You're protecting yourself from what it is you don't want to feel. And so it requires a looking at it and really questioning if the energy that you are storing that you don't want to feel is a threat. Because in your mind, you've decided it's a threat, and you've decided that the pain associated with it is greater than the pain of the addiction. And until you realize that it actually cannot hurt or threaten you, that it is not going to hurt you, where an addiction, especially something that you're taking into the body that can cause harm, such as in your lungs or cigarettes or your liver or long-term use of a substance or alcohol or whatever it may be, that is actually causing physical harm. But somehow you have forgotten that, and you don't even realize that so much or tune into that, but you think that the feeling of the emotion is going to cause you harm. But if you recognize that it is only energy and that it cannot hurt you, that it has no threat to you, and you allow it to be free and acknowledge it, it can begin to come up. It starts to float up, which means it requires a willingness that when the urge for the addiction comes in, to start to have conscious awareness. Now that's the first step, to before you go and turn on the Netflix, right, or look at the video game or whatever you're doing that you may equate with addiction, that you are willing to take a pause or a breath, even for a few seconds. And even if you begin to be like consciously aware that you're doing it, that's the first step. I'm aware that I'm reaching for that cookie. I'm aware that I'm reaching for that vodka. I'm aware that I'm reaching to look at pornography, whatever it is, to numb myself. And if you can have that glimpse of a conscious awareness, what's happening is you're starting to allow to move into consciousness, where you're starting to step back. Now that's the beginning. And the more and more that you can do that, the more that time of that conscious awareness begins to expand, where you take time before you do the action. Now, if you tell yourself you can't and you're bad and don't do it, that won't work. You're just going to keep wanting to do it, because you're giving it attention. Even if it's negative attention, it's just creating a momentum in the vortex of that energy. And so what you're wanting to do is to give some space to it and have an awareness. Now, once you have the awareness of it, and it might take a week or two or a few days or even longer to just start to glimpse into the awareness. Then you might say, all right, I have this moment of awareness that I'm reaching for something. And ultimately, what is it that I am pushing down or not wanting to feel? And then we want you to start to just tune into the body and start to notice where this energy that you're afraid to feel is, that you think is threatening to you, or it's scary, might be residing. Because it can be residing in all of the body, or it might be sitting in a part. Sometimes it's in the heart or the throat or the solar plexus, but it's sitting somewhere. And the more you become sensitive to it, you'll start to feel it. And then what we want you to do is, as you're feeling it, to begin to tune into it, not as labeling it as a moment in time or a trauma or an event that you have to think about or clear or talk about, but simply as an energy that happened to get stored because you didn't know where to put it, or you didn't know how to feel it, or you didn't know how to allow it to flow by, so you caught it. It's almost like a energy moving by that you were afraid of it. Instead of letting it pass through you, you caught it in a jar, and you put the top on the jar, and you then imprinted it or filed it in your being. And so you've been afraid to take the file out and to open the jar and to let it out, but it's just energy. And if you allow the energy out and you realize that that's all it is just energy, it will just float away and dissipate. And it may take some time for it to do that. You may have to keep feeling it for it to dissipate, but it will eventually merge back to where it originated from, which is source energy, where everything originates from. So once you have that space in between what we would call that thinking mode, and you're allowing yourself to feel it, tune into where it is, and then start to recognize it, or perhaps even put an adjective to the vibration of it. It might have a color, it might feel jagged or tingly, it might feel angular, or it may have a vibration associated with it. And once you tune into what it is, then you have to allow it to have its freedom, and you can begin to talk to it and say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that I stuffed you in that bottle and I filed you away for so long. You must be angry with me. And you've been stored there for so long. Would you like to come out? I feel safe enough now to allow you to come out. And it might be hesitant at first to come out. But if you can invite it with a genuine invitation that you're willing to recognize that it is not a threat to you and allow it to come out, then you can take the cap off of it. And it's almost like a genie coming out of the body. It's like a smoke of energy that starts to come out. And when it comes out, you are there to be the loving witness of it and to give it its freedom to have its life, to live its life fully. And as you allow it to come out and start to express, it begins to dissolve. And like any energy, at first it'll come out and it'll be sitting right there. But as it hits the open air, right, or smoke, it'll just start to expand and dissolve until you don't feel it anymore, recognizing that you have allowed it to have its space. Now, the more and more you practice this, every time you go to grab at the addiction or whatever it may be you're seeking for, the more room you are giving, the more emptying, in a sense, of your filing cabinet of the imprints of the trauma or the emotional pain that has occurred over your lifetime. Until you go one moment to reach for something and you realize that there is nothing that you are really needing to numb out, that you're already feeling the pleasure of that in which you are seeking to feel from the thing you are looking outside of self to get. And then you may choose to align with something new that brings you pleasure and brings you joy, that carries the same impulse of an energetic release, but that is done in a positive way. And that may be that then you say, I want to move my body. I want to breathe. I want to swim. I want to climb the tree. I want to be outside in nature. I want to be playful. I want to play a game. I want to play music. I want to get my painting out. And whatever it is, I want to act out a scene in a skit. I want to sing at the top of my lungs. All those needs for expression start to arise. And you begin to align your vibration and your energy and your attention then to that that is a positive way of expressing self rather than repressing self. So you're either choosing in any moment to express self or repress self. Which will be. And when you begin to have a conscious awareness of, I have an emotion and so I'm going to express, or I have an emotion so I'm going to repress. And because of the collective conscious agreements that have been put in place, especially that have been inundated and imprinted from an early age to be a good girl and be a good boy and be quiet or keep a secret or don't tell anyone or you should be ashamed of your body or that what happened to you is your fault, all those imprints and ideas that keep coming in, of course you have pushed it all into your cells. And of course you want to go and numb it with something. And so it is a willingness to love yourself enough to know that there is no shame in your addiction. There is no guilt. There is no shame in your trauma, that you have not done anything wrong. There's nothing to blame yourself for. All it is energy. And when you just see it as energy rather than as a situation that you did something wrong or that you're judging yourself for, then you begin, well, where do I want to put my attention? What energy do I want to attach and create and tune into? So that once you've released much, life has continuously will bring experiences. And in each experience, you can choose to go back to the old paradigm of repression, or you can begin to align with new activities and outlets of expression. And so we recognize that for some of you, you may have had a habit for a very, very, very long time that is in place, an impulse and a pleasure that you are unconscious of. But if you were willing to get perhaps on what you might say this call, to listen to an angel talk about addiction, you already have conscious awareness that the thing in which you are doing that perhaps you're not wanting to do is not in alignment with your highest self. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the call. If you were that asleep, you wouldn't even know or be willing to tune in. So you're already in a higher consciousness state, in the willingness to take a connection of information aligned with a higher vibration. So it's all about reconnecting to the highest aspect of who it is that you are, which is pure love. And pure love would not judge or shame oneself. Now, your society, culturally, has created a lot of stigma on addiction, on overdose, on pain, on all these things as those bad people. But they are not bad people. All they were very smart people trying to solve a problem where they didn't know how to solve it. And so they found a solution to feel better. That's all it is. They are not to be punished for that. Your system of healing those with addiction and punishing them and putting them in jail is completely, absolutely absurd. Absurd. It is that you don't punish someone who is traumatized. You seek to see where the trauma originated from and support them in releasing and healing the trauma. Don't punish them. And so it is the same when you talk about incarceration for so many things. We don't understand this caging your fellow humans in some box. We don't understand from the angelic realm. This saddens us so deeply. You are not animals, nor should animals be caged, of course. Nothing should be caged. But you have caged your emotions and stored them to protect yourself from feeling pain that you think is a threat. And now the threat of the addiction is greater than the pain that you're originally trying to keep yourself safe from. And so conscious awareness of the presence of the now with the space of being aware in the moment as you reach for the addiction is step one. Step two is a willingness to love and accept where it is that you are without judgment, knowing that it's all right. Releasing the critical mind. Step three is a willingness to love and to invite the energy that is stored in the cells to come up, to float, to be seen, to be heard, to be released out of its genie bottle, to float back and be absorbed from where it came from. And then to seek a new overriding pleasure that is based in a vibration and an energy that supports you in the creative expression of who it is that you are, rather than repression. And that can be utilizing something and replacing it temporarily as a stepping stone as you reach for the drink or you reach for the cigarette. I'm going to sit now and do my breathing like Casey does, the Wim Hof, right? Magical mornings. I'm going to listen to magical mornings and do my Wim Hof. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do my spiral. I'm going to do Qigong. I'm going to do yoga. When I'm reaching for that impulse, I'm going to go out and take a walk and just do it once until the pleasure of the vibration of the new choice is overriding the old mechanistic idea of the habit that was. And so, yes, these are tools and that's all they are. They are here to support you, but we wanted to address it because from our perspective, we see how distracted you are from the presence of your own being. And when you're distracted from the presence of your own being, you're disconnected from source. When you're disconnected from source, that becomes the birth of the pain, of any kind of pain, whether it be addiction or emotional or mental pain of any anguish. is born out of a disconnect from who it is that you are. So perhaps today felt a little bit like a lecture, and we're not reprimanding any of you. We're here because we love you and we adore you, and we want to remind you that you are powerful and able and capable. Now, you might say, well, someone might say to someone with an addiction, well, just stop, use your will. Well, it's not about your will. You can't will yourself into stopping something, but you can surrender and allow yourself to feel. That's different. The bravery and the courage it takes to feel the emotion that has been stored to come up to be released, that is the will that we're talking about, not the overriding and willing yourself sitting on your hands not to eat the cookie. That's quite silly. That won't last, now will it? But why do you want to eat the cookie? What do you not want to feel? And is what you don't want to feel really going to hurt you? It might hurt for a bit, or you may not even have to feel the hurt if you're willing to see it as vibration and as energy that simply is stored that needs to be freed. All right?
Thank you, Raphael. I have another question.
Yes.
So we talked a lot about the addiction part, but so many people actually have people in their lives who are addicts, and it affects them on a deep level in terms of how to deal with it and what to do, and where is the line in being supportive, but also being an enabler. And I just was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that, of what to do if somebody that you deeply love and is connected to has uh, a serious addiction.
Yes. Well, it is quite interesting, the enabling part, because it takes two to tangle, right? When one is deeply being hurt by another's behavior, somehow they are somewhat in alignment or enabling that behavior. And so that can be the victim vibration or the martyr vibration. Well, he drinks all the time and it's not so bad and I just have to live with that. Well, you have to be conscious that that's your choice to live with that and step into the power of who it is that you are. That may be their choice to have the addiction, but is it your choice to remain in relationship? Now you say, well, that's easy to say, but what if it's my dear child that I love? Well, of course, it's heartbreaking. And to see them suffering in such pain. But if it is a child, often there is a trauma or an emotion that arise that they then are holding that pattern to heal all the beings in the unit. They are carrying their part of the agreement. So if we're going to zoom out from a much more spiritual perspective, way out, that may even be hard for others to hear, it is that often someone in the family unit will take on a very courageous role to be the one to hold the vibration of the addiction in order for others in the unit to heal. Because it is that they all in that unit, if you're in a unit where there is this type of pain, has to heal. It's not about one. One is just the one that looks like it has the problem, but the entire unit is ill. And so there is something that has occurred that got stored that needs to be seen, but it also must be recognized within all involved. Otherwise, you wouldn't be vibrating in a relationship, whether it be a friend or a partner or a child or a spouse, that is holding that energy unless something within your own being is aligning with that vibration that also has an emotion that is being stored that needs to be healed as well. And when one is a great enabler, it is often that they too don't want to deal with the emotion that would have to surface for the healing to come up. So they enable the being with the addiction to continue their addiction, because it keeps them safe also from dealing with their own pain, because then they have to be the caretaker, and that in itself can also actually be an addiction. It's a great distraction to, oh, poor me, I have to take care of this person who is out of line all the time, and I am a victim, and so all of my energy and life is completely absorbed with taking care of this person. That in itself is a distraction from something deeper to be healed. And so it is a mirror for everyone in the family unit. Now, that might be a very bold thing to say. It might piss off some people, because you say, well, I didn't ask for this. I don't want my child to have this addiction. I was a good mother. I didn't do anything wrong. And we're not, this is absolutely completely about not blaming. There's no blaming here. So please take away blame and shame and guilt. It's about a willingness to allow the emotion to arise without judgment, knowing that it is simply stored energy, and everyone has stored energy. Some of us just store it, or you just store it more than others, dependent upon the imprint of your ancestors, your upbringing, your experience, and the traumas that you brought into your experience for the growth and the learning process of your human work that you're doing right now here on Earth. So it is that some people come into the family as the black sheep, or the addicted one, or the spiritual one, or the one that doesn't quite fit in, but they chose that role in the collective pod in which they've chosen to incarnate with, in order to be part of something that supports the healing of all. And it is a courageous role to choose. It is in your political system, in your in many systems, right? In the arts, or many places in science, there will be certain beings that will hold up a mirror of an energy that is contradictory or that is out of place. But that's the one that is vibrating, or being the black sheep, the bad one, that surfaces so many things in order for healing to happen, in order for light to be shed on something, in order for you to actually accelerate your vibration to a new level, to uncover hidden sorrow and pain and judgment and whatever it might be coming up. So it is to remember that all players are involved. Now, where is the line, you ask, between loving them, or what some people might call tough love? You can only align with whatever vibration in that moment is of the highest good for you and them, and only you know in any moment, for every situation is different. But the healing is not just about fixing them, it's about the healing within oneself. And so the one in the relationship must also allow the surfacing of the emotion to arise and the healing to occur, to begin to vibrate with the healed vibration that then ultimately, like a piano key or tuning fork, tunes into the vibration of the loved one they are with and affects them on a level, and it begins to create healing throughout the entire unit.
Great. And thank you, Raphael.
You're welcome. All right. Is there anything else? Perhaps we could give you a little fun thing to do, since we're all so very, very serious.
Mhm.
It is that I have been waking Kelly up at night, every night. In fact, she's not that happy about it, getting her ready for your starseed work, because we're wanting to work and move into higher dimensions where you'll work with many of the great masters as they are coming together to invite you to their temples that dwell in the etheric realm. And inside these temples are places in which you may visit at night. and places that you may visit during sleep time until you become so familiar with them that you can visit them consciously during daytime, until you can consciously visit them even in an awakened state, and where you can step into these vibrational temples where ascended beings are there to support you in the transmutation and transition and transcendence of stagnant energy for the evolution of humanity. And so we want you to know this, that you are not alone, and that vibrations of beings such as myself and many great masters that live in etheric planes that cannot be seen with the naked eye from the perspective of where it is that you are, exist in other dimensional worlds, that as time passes and you evolve collectively, you will be able to tune into that frequency as your vibration elevates and they begin to merge, becoming part of your experience. But as of now, you can visit them with a conscious willingness and intent, either during meditation or prior to sleep. And you can come to where it is that I am. And where it is that I am in my beautiful green emerald temple, I bring you great healing. Healing of the body, the mind, and the soul. And so I invite you to come and to be with me. And imagine moving up a beautiful golden spiral of light into a higher realm of an etheric crystal city where the temples are all around the place in which I live and dwell, in which we have our own structures in our own way, different than yours, but quite glistening and beautiful. And you may come to a place that perhaps is and has upon its door the temple for those with addiction. And as you come and enter and are intended to be invited, we will open the door for you. And this is a beautiful temple of light in which gorgeous golden flames are burning perpetually to support the dissolving and the releasing of caged energies that hold you in the helplessness of your addiction. And so intend tonight when you go to bed to come to visit us, asking Archangel Raphael, myself, to come as I dwell and lay over you, to carry you up the golden spiral of love into the crystalline city of light, where I escort you over to the temple of addiction, where you can transform and transmit and transcend the vibration of the dense energy that is no longer needed to be stored within your being. And as I invite you into the temple, you will see little beautiful angels flying all about, busy doing their work. As they move into each and every soul who has an intent and a willingness to heal, they shall come up from beneath you, underneath the beautiful cushion of light in which you sit, as they spin and move their energy up and through your cells, clearing and cleansing any darkness of heavy, dense vibration that is no longer needed. And as they do this, they transmute it for you, much like the gorgeous violet flame of Saint Germain as he comes in using the blue and the pink, the vibration of power and the vibration of love, intertwining together to move up your spine, realigning you with the powerful being that you are and the willingness to stand in that power, and radiating unconditional love out your heart, expanding and surrendering, freeing the energy stored, with a willingness to let them float by, let them out to play. And as you let them out to play, you may blow upon them and send them on their way so that they no longer create this pain. And so know that you can visit us at any time, that we are here in great numbers to support you, and that you are not alone. Many blessings and good day. There are some souls that are present right now who have passed from an overdose. And they want you to know that they are well. They want you to know that they can see now, that you can open the cage door and free the pain to heal. And they are here as guiding angels to support those who are in a deep sleep of suffering, that they too may find that doorway and open it rather than pass through the doorway into the next realm, that they can continue to be here and live a life filled with joy, and that you cannot be cured of addiction, but you can be healed of trauma. Good day.